session is going to be recorded. So welcome everyone to our links to learning. So this week we have Todd Evans and his colleague Randy joining us this afternoon. So they are with the Export Development Canada, so the EDC. So you'll hear that a lot throughout the presentation. Todd has been with the EDC for 23 years. So he's bringing some really good knowledge and experience and his expertise with economic development and international trade. So he has a whole bio if you wanted to read more about this amazing man. He's originally from Newfoundland and Labrador. He is proud of his Mi'kmaq culture. He's a traditional powwow dancer. I think that's the most important piece to take away from this. He's a powwow dancer and he wants to spend more time on the powwow trail when he retires. So really honored to have you here with us this week, Todd and Randy. Thank you. I know life is busy. I know there's a lot to be done, and we are so grateful here at CanDo that you just pressed pause on your world to be able to present and bring this really good resource and knowledge to share with us this afternoon. So welcome. Thank you for being here. Ryan, there's plenty of opportunity for you for any questions or discussion. To use even the chat box is a good place if you can't get onto audio. So we welcome that conversation, that dialogue. So thank you everyone for being here this afternoon. And I'm just going to pass it over to our guest speaker, Todd.
Great. Thanks very much, Michelle. Again, a pleasure to be here. I think it's the fourth in our series this week, the four Western provinces. And before I start, I just want to acknowledge that I am honored to have and thankful to have the opportunity to live and work on the unceded territory and homeland of the Algonquian and Anishinaabe Nation here in central Canada, Ottawa. For those of you who perhaps didn't see the presentation last week, so we did a presentation, a national one last Wednesday, and that went more into around EDC's financial programs, a little bit more detail on some of those offerings and solutions. We're going to talk a little bit about those today, but today we're going to focus a little bit more on kind of sort of some of the tools available for building an export plan, some of the tools and information sources available to do market research, to do your own vetting of potential customers and buyers, and different kinds of services that are available to support your potential export strategy. And for those who don't know, EDC is a crown corporation. We're one of the so-called financial crowns. So Export Development Canada, along with Business Development Canada and Farm Credit Canada, and there's a couple other smaller ones. So EDC is essentially sort of a government-owned but still an independent financial institution, and our goal is to literally to serve Canadian companies in terms of supporting any of their export growth, export plans. So I am going to bring up since we're a small group here, I do have a few slides, but I'm not going to go through all of those slides in like a big formal presentation. And I will stop from time to time and see if there's any questions in the chat. So I think first I need to share my screen, bring up the presentation. And I'm going to start the slideshow. Let's move this out of the way. So EDC is really sort of our mandate is to help Canadian businesses of all size to go global, to help them take advantage of international business opportunities. And really we do that through kind of two core sort of elements of our mandate, and that's increasing access to capital, and kind of the flip side of that coin is reducing risk. And there's four areas where we do that. first is financing, and that's for things. We have programs like export loan guarantees, so the different loan guarantee programs. We can do direct lending, again, often in tandem or partnership with another financial institution. We have a whole range of insurance products designed to really protect your business and kind of give you that sleep at night comfort when you're dealing with an international buyer, international market. We covered some of these products in more detail last week, and that presentation is available on the Can-Do site under I think it's under the Wednesday webinars section. But with insurance, there's a couple things I'd like to point out. One is the accounts receivable insurance. And so basically what that is, EDC will actually insure your sales against loss. And there's a whole range of different kind of, you can imagine some of the risks and potential things that can happen if you're selling, to a company outside of Canada. A lot of the same risks of selling to a company in Canada. The company goes bankrupt, or a whole range of different things that can happen. Any kind of contract disputes, those things. We also have a range of bonding products that can support your business. And my colleague Randy is going to give some examples of those later. And one good thing too about the accounts receivable insurance is that banks will actually lend against those insured receivables. So they'll extend your line of credit or an operating line, knowing that you have that kind of protection behind you in terms of having your sales protected. And our third area where we've been investing a lot in recent years is knowledge about all things international trade and exporting, and it's really a companies that maybe don't have a lot of experience at exporting, but at the same time, a lot of companies that do have experience exporting, maybe they're getting into some new areas or whatnot. And really the knowledge is designed, and I'll go through some of those later, just to give you sort of background information on understanding about export markets, where to go to for information, understanding some of the risks and benefits as well of exporting. And then finally, it's connections, and it's about bringing Canadian companies of all sizes. Connections is typically geared towards smaller and medium-sized companies, but bringing those companies into EDC's kind of international trade ecosystem, if for lack of a better term, and it's introducing companies to our supply chain partners, doing matchmaking events. So there's a whole range of things that we do there to kind of leverage our networks and to give companies access to those networks. And one final thing I will add here, much of what we do is always in a partnership approach. Whether it's the financing, we'll often do that in partnership with other financial institutions. Likewise, insurance and some of those other products will be often matched to a product from another financial institution. We have a number of different knowledge partners. Some of them are other government agencies, some of them are private sector partners, and then of course our connections. That's a wide network of partnerships we have there. So EDC is all about sort of being complementary and adding capacity rather than just coming in and doing everything on our own. It's kind of leveraging our resources and where can we complement what's already available. So part of my job over the past year and a half or so is really to take this big ecosystem of all the different financial and knowledge solutions, are all of our international trade partners, and to sort of raise awareness of that amongst Indigenous companies, make sure that it's accessible and relevant. And we've been doing that through a lot of partnerships with, of course, with Can-Do and others as well, through that engagement. So we want to learn about Indigenous companies, their needs, their challenges, and how we can, make sure that this system actually is accessible and relevant and meets those needs. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about building an export plan. And since we're a small audience here, I'm not going to go through all these slides in a formal way. You will have access to them on the Can-Do website. So I thought I would just give you some guidance and resources around building an export plan, because that's really where you need to start. If you're interested in going into export markets, it's starting with that a good plan to kind of get all your ducks in a row kind of thing. But I first want to talk about like what is an exporter. We have a very comprehensive definition of an exporter at EDC. And first of all, it's not just for large companies. In fact, most exporters are smaller and mid-sized companies. Again, that's just a reflection of the business profile in Canada. And amongst our Indigenous exporting customers, it's the same thing. They tend to be smaller, some mid-sized companies, not too many large companies. Again, that's just a reflection of the of kind of the business profile of the Indigenous business community. So any company that sells a product or service outside of Canada is an exporter. And increasingly, in recent years, the past, 10, 15, 20 years, we've seen services take on a much more prominent role. It's still not as significant as what you call product, physical things, something you can drop on your foot. But services are growing quite quickly in terms of exports. And there's a number of things behind that, new technologies. A lot of the trade agreements have provisions now that allow more trade and services, more and more of the travel that supports that, more of the cross-border investment and capital flows that support the trade and services. And of course, the supply chains that now spread across, all parts of the world, many, many different countries. There's a lot of services that trade within that to support that supply chain trade as well. Many companies are typically born global. Given, if you're a small technology company or you're just a company that has a product that you can sell in many, many markets. So some companies from day one, they start, looking at exporting to many different markets. The more traditional route is your company will get, start serving its local market, and then maybe across the province, and then, a bigger part of Canada, domestic, go to North America, United States, and then from there, start looking at overseas markets, Asia, Europe, kind of thing. And then, a lot of companies still do that, and that's a very effective way of kind of getting experience and kind of growing at your own comfort level as you gain that scale. One thing I should add too is that a lot of companies are exporters or involved in the export sectors, and they may not be aware of that. So we at EDC, what we call indirect exporters. So your company may be part of an export supply chain within Canada, and you're selling goods or services, maybe to a large exporter, a large forestry company, a large mining or energy company, or to a large project, oil sands, or to a large infrastructure project that supports international trade. So being part of that export supply chain, you are classified as an exporter. So all the services and knowledge and financial products we talk about today are also available to Indigenous indirect exporters. And my colleague Randy is actually going to give a couple examples in the case studies later on that. So building an export plan, it's of course, it seems obvious. It's important. It's like any new business undertaking or project. You always want to start with a plan, and really, it gives you that kind of, it allows you to, as I say here, how ready are you for that expansion? You can kind of, your plan can help you assess that. And at the end of the day, it gives you that kind of structured, well thought out roadmap. You complete your plan in phases, and gives you the opportunity to sort of reassess along the way and make any necessary adjustments if need be, and kind of having those sort of smaller sequential goals. It kind of keeps the momentum going as well. It keeps that kind of sort of positivity around the plan. And of course, having a good plan is also very important for financial institutions. I won't go into too many details there, but when you're approaching a financial institution for funding or support, they're going to want to see a good, well thought out plan. They want to know that you've done your homework, you're prepared, you understand kind of the risks involved. You've done that, like I say, that cost benefit analysis. You've got a good sense of the financing required. And at the end of the day, what's most important there is it gives those financial institutions the confidence to work with you as well. And when I say financial institutions. That could be one of the larger mainstream banks, maybe one of the smaller banks, a trust company, credit unions, could be the Aboriginal financial institutions. Again, any of those lenders will want to see that kind of plan. And there's some good resources there. We included the link here for BDC as well. So we do tap into each other's knowledge. So this is a good link as well. Provide some really good tips. And just so you know, all of these links are embedded directly into the presentation, so you can access all of that information there. There is a process. It's it seems pretty obvious, but again, it's going through that sequential process. Is your company ready? Look at your strengths and weaknesses. Do you have the capacity to take on a new contract? Do you have the technology and resources to do that? Whether those resources are human capital or physical capital. One other thing I would say here too around the strategy. Again, the strategy is just kind of the how, the when, the where, and the how and the who, right? Of the strategy. One thing I would add though for Indigenous companies to consider is first certifying your business as a certified Indigenous business. And there's a couple organizations in Canada that can do that. One is the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business. They have their CAB program, certified Aboriginal business, and that's a pretty good program. The second one is CAMC, that's the Canadian Aboriginal and Minority Supplier Council. I think I got that right. And again, so they go through a very thorough vetting process to ensure your company is to get that Indigenous certification. And again, that's important because these are recognized certifications, and that's also, having that certification is also important to protect your Indigenous brand, because as we know, there are players out there who try to take advantage of that Indigenous brand, and then maybe they're not fully honest about that. Just very quickly, when you're looking at your resources, try to kind of get a sense of everything that you need here. Whether you need financing, think about the logistics, understanding the market. Do you have the right technology and processes in place? The human capital, the physical equipment capital, and again, on the end, sort of the legal issues you need to understand and potentially plan for an IP, intellectual property. So again, that's where protecting that Indigenous branding can be part of that process. And again, so once you have those resources in mind, it kind of helps you focus and kind of doing it in bite-sized pieces. So I won't go through this, just kind of summarize what I just said, but I will show you a few different tools and resources that you can use to support your own research. And again, I've talked a lot about this, but if you do have any questions or comments, I can certainly get to those at the end. So this is what I want to spend a little bit of time on. These are some of the research tools that we have to help companies. So one is the EDC Company Insight. So that's a database of global companies. So let's say you're thinking of selling your product into Texas or California or UK or Japan, and you've got some companies in mind that have maybe been identified. You can go in here and do a bit of that initial research and vetting. Basically, it's doing your due diligence on those companies to learn more about them, see if there's any red flags around them. And so this is a tool that a lot of our clients and a lot of actually people at EDC will tend to use this tool as well. Another one is EDC Enlist, and again, I've provided the link here. So these are all the partners and service providers that we work with over the years. And so again, they've been vetted. They're trusted partners. They're partners and suppliers that our clients use all the time. These are like, the freight forwarders, logistics companies, the customs brokers, and then other companies that, provide different kinds of international trade services. And one other thing I thought was might be useful as well. So we did a webinar with Google, and there was a couple other agencies involved in this webinar. This was back in late January, I believe it was, and it was really about giving kind of advice, guidance, and tips on finding new customers. But Google talked about one of their tools, Market Finder, where you can go in and do market research and kind of stack your company, your products and services up against different markets, and so it's a pretty neat tool. Again, the link to that webinar is here. And one thing I should point out as well, that you can get access to all of this information through our website. And it's done through a My EDC account. So you can go to, and I've provided the link to that later on in this presentation, but you can register free for a My EDC account. You just give a little bit of information about yourself, your company, and kind of your growth objectives, those kinds of things. And again, that's used by our marketing team to get a better understanding of our clientele and kind of sort of needs and requirements for our clients. But again, it's a free service, and you can access all of this information through that My EDC account. I've provided some other additional resources here, but I'm not going to go through all this, but there's a couple here I'd like to highlight. One is I put them in yellow. The first one is TCS, that's the Trade Commissioner Service. That's part of Global Affairs Canada. It's a federal department. And they have a lot of great information on market guides, to the US, to the EU, other markets. They also have a network of Trade Commissioner Service officers across Canada, but also located in perhaps 150, 160 countries around the world. So that they're a good resource for doing introductions and getting kind of access to local information as well. They also have the CAN Export Program. And that's a program where companies, typically smaller and mid-sized companies, can apply for up to a $75,000 grant to support their international marketing efforts. And they've made some changes around COVID to help companies sort of build out sort of online platforms, build up their websites, because it was initially designed for travel to trade shows, travel to meet clients, and of course that's not happening now. But you can still access that program and that funding to kind of start building up, help build up your brand, help build up your website, and so that's something I would definitely recommend people check out. And the other one is the Canadian Border Services Agency. So they have some really good guides and around all the steps and sort of process of exporting goods, the kind of forms that are required. And it's kind of like the second one I point to there is a checklist of the things you go through. So again, that's very helpful, and there's also a lot of information there around specific goods. So if you're exporting product XYZ, you will find information or links to information around maybe specific requirements around that product. Some additional resources here. I won't go through all those. And then finally, before I turn it over to Randy, just a little bit more on the financial plan. Like any business undertaking initiative, having a good financial plan is critical. And again, it signals to your your banker, your partners that that you're taking the work, you've done the work, you're really working hard to understand the market. You've thought out the process. You're trying to consider everything involved, and there's a whole lot of things that you want to take into consideration here. And I outlined some of them there, and I won't go in through all those in detail. But again, it's really having that well thought out financial plan with projections around cash flow, and these are the kind of things that a financer, a bank, whatever, as I mentioned earlier, it could be a trust company, credit union, including the AFIs as well. They'll look for all of this kind of information as well. Again, they're looking for that sort of reassurance and confidence that you've done your work, and they can see that this is a serious undertaking, a serious business. And so at this point, when you're at the point of building a financial plan, and this is kind of where we move beyond EDC's knowledge products. and start looking at some of the financial solutions that EDC has to offer. So you could be at the point here now where you're starting to bid on contracts, you might be winning contracts. So this is where solutions like a loan guarantee program comes in, maybe direct lending, some of the insurance. If you start getting some of those sales, you want to maybe insure them. Again, you'll get that sleep at night insurance. Some of the bonding solutions that you might need to support your business. And so I'm going to stop there and take a break. And I think a couple of examples of actual cases that we've done. We've kind of scrubbed them a little bit for confidentiality reasons, but I think Randy will walk through those and I'll give you a good sense of the kind of support and companies that we work with. All right, Randy, I think you're still on mute. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we got it. My
Awesome.
my mouse cursor disappeared onto another screen, and I was having trouble getting it back here, but we're all set. So thank you very much, Todd, for leading into that. And as Todd pointed out, I've got a couple of I guess cases. I don't mean it to sound that formal. I hope it's a little bit of a discussion where I can present some opportunities that EDC worked on to help the financial institution and help the client move forward with their opportunity. But maybe firstly, I'll just take about 2 minutes to just explain a little bit about myself and my role. So I'm the senior account manager. I'm also the only account manager for EDC located in Saskatchewan, and I cover the entire Saskatchewan market. Something that makes it a little bit easier to manage here is the simple fact that because there's just myself, basically I cover all clients, all industries, all client sizes. So whether it's the smallest of small companies or a larger corporation, I sort of work with everyone. That's one of the things that makes my day really interesting. I'm located in Regina. Typically spend a fair bit of time on the road, going out to see my clients. But needless to say, the environment is a little bit different right now with COVID. So face-to-face over the computer or telephone has become the norm. I guess in terms of the case studies that I've brought to present, so they're based on, I guess, real clients that we've worked with. And opportunities that we've put together in the Indigenous space. And Todd, maybe if we can just advance the slide to the first one. So I guess that it always starts out with sort of a need. There's something that the client is needing to help them move forward with their plans. And I guess in that context, the way this one started was the local financial institution, which is a bank that's focused on the Indigenous clients. They came to me and presented this scenario. Basically, it was about a small Indigenous-owned logging company. They had known the company for some time, but the company was quite small. They operated primarily on their own resources. They had a small bank facility. But really, it was just kind of a small company that was bumping along and doing fine. And then, lo and behold, they come across an opportunity for a larger contract. What this does for the company is creates a great opportunity. It's a chance for the company to generate more revenues, to expand their capacity, show more capability. But a key thing that it impacts within any company, for that matter, is cash flow and financial pressures. And in particular, what happened here was the new contract had a significant pre-revenue expense. And what that did for the client is creates a cash flow crunch. The reason that it had these initial expenses is they had to do some initial clearing and cutting. They had to create a logging road for access, which they all wanted to do prior to the primary harvest season. which was the point in time when then they would go in and do the logging. So really they wanted to do all the pre-work, but it represented a lot of expense in advance of getting the revenue under the contract. The financial institution, while they knew them well, were comfortable with them, they weren't comfortable extending the facilities to the limit that the client would need. So really what they were looking for is a partner and somebody that could come in and share some of the risk and help to make the deal happen. So just go next slide, please. So the way that the opportunity actually happened in terms of what we put together for them was it starts typically with a discussion. Sometimes the client approaches us directly. Often it's a financial institution who knows how to partner with EDC, reaches out to us, and that's the starting point. In this scenario, it was the bank that had reached out to us, described the situation, asked if we could possibly partner with them. And after going through some of the details and understanding the client and the opportunity a little better, we had determined that EDC could help with the Export Guarantee Program, which I'll just call an EGP for short. Very basically, that is a loan guarantee program. And in this scenario, we were able to provide a 60% guarantee to the bank to help support an increase to what was previously a smaller limit. So with benefit of the EGP program guarantee, the bank increased the client's credit facility from 100,000 up to 300,000, and that included a seasonal bulge, which on a credit facility, it just means there's a part of the year when they can have an elevated amount, and then it reduces through the regular part of the year. But key thing was we were able to support the bank, and the bank was able to get comfortable with our guarantee and put the facility together. One of the things about the company, when I talked about the company being a logging company doing work for a Canadian forestry entity, you might wonder where's the export there. Well, at the end of the day, we know that the forestry industry represents very significant exports from Canada. So although our client really was doing work in Canada for another Canadian company, they were doing that work as an indirect exporter and providing support under our indirect mandate. So that's what allowed EDC to come to the table and provide that support in this scenario. Key thing is, at the end of the day, there's really three parties that are involved and that kind of benefit through the course of this. We'll just jump to the next screen slide. Change screens, please. Perfect. So I guess the three groups that are really involved in all this, first and foremost is the business. At the end of the day, they got the capacity that they needed. I think we might have jumped ahead a couple, but in short, what they got was the capacity that they needed for the EGP or for the loan guarantee, which basically let them take on a larger contract. The bank was able to expand their relationship with the client, do more business for them, and importantly, help that client grow. From EDC's end, we were able to help support and expand the company's activities into the industry. So helped to grow exports, and it helped the company and bank both move forward with doing more business. So in short, it was a very straightforward transaction, worked out really well. And one of the key things I think that we're looking at here is in this profile, keep in mind, exporters can be part of the supply chain, and I just want to emphasize that. We find that we do more in the Indigenous space. We've been doing more transactions under that indirect export than we have been doing under direct export. Maybe that'll come with time. It'll be great to see more and more activity there. But at present, just we have to remain open-minded as to what's an exporter. I don't know if anybody had any initial questions on that particular example. Okay, maybe we can just jump to the next one, Todd. Okay, thank you. This one was a little different in terms of the client structure. And I've had several transactions along this line. And very basically, it involved a local tribal council, which participants were a number of different bands. But within the tribal council, they've actually grown and acquired several businesses. It's an important part, I guess, of their governance model and of their investment model, because it really helps to sustain the Indigenous communities that are involved. It creates employment, and it also helps retain revenues that are generated from contracts and work that are done within these Indigenous-owned businesses. The particular business that we were looking at was a contracting company, and it operates primarily in the mining and the oil and gas sectors. So again, think indirect exports. Both of those are significant exporting industries. So a contracting company working in those industries, taking contracts with them, is part of their supply chain. And this company had several new potential contracts that were kind of all coming together at once. So while it represents great opportunities, it also creates a little bit of a perfect storm in terms of both the need for working capital to be able to go through the expenses, the cost, and the pre-work before the revenue starts coming in. But also in this case, there's fairly significant bonding needs. When we say bonding needs, just think performance guarantees. And what they actually look like typically in Canada is usually it's a letter of credit issued by a bank that sort of backstops a company's contract. So if the company fails to perform, then the bond is there to help protect the company that might be, I guess, suffering from that failure in performance. So the key thing about bonding is when a bank issues a letter of credit on behalf of a client, typically it becomes a working capital issue. And the reason for that is the bank usually needs to be secured. And the way that they would cover a letter of credit or bond exposure is they would usually carve it out of available working capital margin. So it would actually reduce what they have available on their working capital facility, or they would just ask for cash to cover the exposure, which has the same net impact at the end of the day. So bonding support can be very important, particularly in the contracting industry. So as we, I guess, recognizing the issues and everything that came together on this one, the bank liked the company, wanted to continue with the company, wanted to help it grow, but again, didn't quite have the appetite or the capacity in terms of their risk profile to be able to cover all of the need. That's where EDC came to the table around both the operating facility or working capital needs and on the bonding facility. And just move ahead a page, Todd. And so on this, basically where we went was similar to our logging example. The bank had approached us. We worked through it, determined potential solutions, made sure that the client was interested in proceeding that way. And we again put together, firstly, a loan guarantee. In this case, we were able to put together a 75% guarantee. The percentages are a little bit of a variable factor in terms of how much we can guarantee. It depends on the scenario. But in this case, we were able to provide a 75% guarantee on about a $2.75 million operating facility. So it was very significant for the bank. One key thing here is the operating exposure was actually new to the bank. They did not have an operating loan out to this client. They knew the client, but hadn't onboarded them yet. for their financial services. So this was really the first financial service that they were able to provide them. So it was a win for the bank, and it represented a new facility to the client, with covering off a lot of needed working capital. The second thing that we had supported them with, as I mentioned, was the bonding side. In terms of product name, we call that the International Transfer Guarantee, or ITG. And the ITG program it's a little bit of a sweetheart program for the bank and the client. And the reason I describe it that way is we don't require that that facility is secured by the client. And it does not compete with the bank's security position in terms of their relationship with the client for other loans or other services. So EDC actually comes in and provides 100% guarantee for those letters of credit, where we were supporting their bonding requirements for up to about 1.25 million. The mandate participation, again, as I mentioned, was under indirect export mandate. And again, that was because they were providing work into the export sector. And next page, Todd. All right, so again, the three primary parties at the table being the bank, the financial institution, and first and foremost, the business. The business was able to take on a lot more opportunities that year. They were able to generate more revenue. They were able to do it in a much more organized way without being as stressed and strained on working capital, because the facilities were all right-sized to their opportunity. For the financial institution, it really meant onboarding of a new client. They were able to book their initial financial facilities with them and grow their relationship from there. And they had EDC on board as a risk-sharing partner for both the bonding facilities and the operating loan. EDC, again, first and foremost, we want to see Canadian companies and industries grow and succeed in increasing export activity. And we got there with this transaction as well. So that's the basics of a couple of examples. The reality with EDC's facilities is, don't think of it as a laundry list in terms of exactly what we provide and what we do. Rather, just think of us as potential support for a company. And we always want you to, first and foremost, bring us the opportunity, bring us what your client is working on, so that we can talk and determine whether there's potential solutions or ways that we can help them. For us, it's a win when we see a company grow, whether it's large or small. And at the end of the day, something that I had mentioned this morning, and I'll mention again, the only bad question is the one that doesn't get answered or doesn't get asked. It's always important to just have that quick conversation. We don't expect everybody to be an expert on EDC. Sometimes it's a little hard for us to keep track of with the pace of change and things that are always going on. But let's have those discussions, reach out to us, talk to us about examples, because we can talk through a situation in just a matter of a few minutes and determine, what direction would be best. But, thanks, and again, happy to chat on any of these examples or any other EDC questions.
Well, thanks very much, Randy. That was a great discussion, and I like one of the points you made, one of the previous ones as well, is that EDC will work with companies of all sizes, and I think you mentioned one this morning where there was an insurance product, and it was like $14,000 transaction, and so again, it's it's not like that cookie cutter approach, and just to reiterate what Randy said, you'll have our contact information, but if you're looking at a prospective transaction or a contract with whether it's part of that indirect supply chain in Canada or with a company outside of Canada, it's always best just to come directly to EDC or to one of our account managers, and they can work with you and work towards finding a solution that works for you. And there's many different financial products that can come into play here that can be tweaked and kind of as like what Randy said, kind of right sized to your business. I'm just going to take another minute or two, go through one couple of things there, and then we'll just stop and see if there's any questions, any discussion we might want to have. So I just want to go to the next slide. Here we go. Yeah, so I like including this one because it kind of encapsulates a lot of what we talked about today in terms of the resources. So you look across that sort of that spectrum or the exporter journey, and no matter where you are on that, you're just starting out building your export plan, or you're actually at the point where you're looking for new export sales. You're already exporting and just want to grow to new markets. There's kind of information and resources that you can go through in here, and some of those are the the market research stuff I was talking about, like the insight, the enlist. Some of them are specific financial solutions products we have as well, and some of our partners are in here as well. So again, this one slide is a great resource. So I'm going to stop at this slide and again raise the point around the My EDC account. It's a great way to access a lot of information. It's a way to access trade advisors at EDC, where you can post questions and ask about a specific issue. If they don't know the answer, then they'll reach out to some of our partners or introduce you to an account manager if you're at the point where you need a financial solution to support a sale or a contract. And with the My EDC account as well, you get access to all the different webinars that you can sign up for, and so there's a whole range of different things in there. Some of the recent ones are around like the one we did with Google, finding new markets, but we've done webinars on e-commerce with another of our partners, Shopify. So there's a lot of great information in there. And the last thing I'll point out, my contact information, just more resources here, but I put my contact information in there as well. If you have any questions, comments, want to find out more, just want to chat, and by all means, feel free to reach out to me. So I'm going to stop there. We still have a few minutes left if there's any questions or comments.
Yeah, we welcome any questions, comments, Ryan, Ashley, even to use the chat box. We welcome that as well. I know that I've learned so much about the Export Development Canada and what services, what ways that you can support businesses and organizations. So it was really informative. So thank you so much, Todd and Randy, for lending us your knowledge around this topic this afternoon. So it doesn't seem to be that there are any questions or comments at this point.
Don't see any, but again, a copy of this presentation will be on the Can-Do site, and I think there's, as you mentioned, a recording there. Contact information is there, so Ryan or Ashley, if you have any questions, comments, want to talk further about your own business, by all means, feel free to get in touch, and again, share this information with anyone in your network as well.
That's right. That's right. Folks, so Ashley has a comment here. So she's new and just building, or he's new, just building my knowledge base.
That's great.
I'm with you too. So it's great. I believe that the PowerPoint is going to be made available for you. Hey, Ashley, it's going to be made available for you as well. So I know we had one gal in this morning session who's taking screenshots. I'm the same way, right? Screenshot, but this PowerPoint will be made available so you can go back and look at some of the information and just make those connecting points for yourself and for your business or organization that you're involved in. Did you have any comments, Ashley, aside from what you did, or you just wanted to show us your beautiful face?
No, I wanted to just pop on. I know there's not that many, but Thank you for that. It was definitely an eye-opener. I know international markets is a little bit tough when it comes to end. It's
Mhm.
it's it yeah, it's you don't think about it, right? And especially with the organization that I'm just developing, actually. Uh, it's Prince Albert Regional Economic Development Alliance, and we're so brand new to everything, but I'm just jumping on a bunch of webinars and just getting a lot of knowledge and advice, seeing where we can go, seeing where we can help, because there's lots of business retention, expansion,
Mhm.
ideas, and investment attraction studies that need to be done, for the foundational side of things. And that's where I'm pretty much starting off with, there's a big wealth of softwood lumber in our area. And that's one of the industries, that creates a lot of jobs and income. And it comes back into the community um, tenfold, right? So there's just a lot. And just trying to get some more trade advice, just so I can go back to our partners, because we're municipally controlled with First Nations as well. So it's a really nice collaboration that I'm um, able to spearhead here. But again, it's brand new. So thank you for your knowledge. Um, like I said, there's just a lot.
There's a lot, and every journey starts with those first steps, right? And you've got a lot of export companies, exports industries within Saskatchewan. I mean, last year in 2020, global pandemic, global recession, shutdowns everywhere. I'm just looking at the data, and still Saskatchewan exported about $31 billion worth of goods, and maybe put another $1.5 billion in services on top of that. And so, yeah, and like I say, a wide range of exports and wide range of industries.
Yeah, and especially ones that need to be rebooted, right? And so we've
Yeah.
seen the downfall of the uranium industry in northern Saskatchewan, and that has impacted, a lot of jobs and a lot of that income that was in the north. So looking at ideas as to like trying to get the lumber going again, the lumber industry, the softwood industry, looking at ideas. So there's big projects that are on the horizon, but we're situated like right dab in the middle of Saskatchewan. So it's really interesting because the north is the
Mhm.
industry rich, and in south of the bridge of Prince Albert is agriculture. So they're two different worlds completely, but coming together, it's been quite a ride. And we've just been in operation for 1 year. And so what I had found out was, we need that investment attraction study, to dive deeper into international markets, just to see, where our strengths are. And we can do that assessment, of course, internally, but it's just, there's just so much that needs to be done on the
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it can be daunting. But there's organizations like EDC that's always looking to work with people, and like you say, we're all about partnerships, working with people, and adding capacity, and kind of and at the same time, learning from other organizations like yourselves too, right? So.
Well, that's great, Ashley. You have a good resource that you can connect with. So awesome. So thank you all for joining. Really, Todd, it was great to have you this week with the Can Do Links to Learning. And Randy, thank you for sharing those two case
Certainly.
studies. Really good information. So I hope you have a good rest of the day, good rest of the weekend, wherever you are. I hope you're warm. I hope you're safe and healthy, and may you walk with peace in all your relations. So have a good day. Hi, hi.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.